The FIA has recently had to deal with a lot of high-profile departures, and Wolff has raised his own concerns about the legibility of the governing body of F1. Amid the controversial investigation that the FIA has launched against Wolff and his wife Susie, it seems like the Austrian is not willing to let go so easily of criticising the governing body of F1, and he's taken a deep hit towards whether or not the body could sustain itself after facing so much criticism. With the FIA already in deep trouble on its own, is Wolff trying to undermine the credibility of the FIA? And if so, will he succeed in his own revenge quest? One of the massive shakeups that happened in the Formula One world recently is the departure of Steve Nielsen, who was serving as the FIA sporting director up until the beginning of 2024. However, Steve decided that enough is enough, and one of the primary reasons for his departure could be the failed investigation that the governing body has launched on Toto and Susie Wolf regarding conflict of interests and sharing confidential information that could have been obtained by each one of them. Nielsen's impact on the sport was surely massive. He had to report directly to Nicholas Tombazis, who is the single-seater director, as Steve was one of the key figures when it comes to the FIA's reshuffle of their structure ahead of the 2023 season. But the fact that this was heavily criticised due to the fact that the race control operations took massive hits, and with Ben Mohammed Salim's controversial comments about women coming to life, maybe Nielsen felt something that we couldn't have foreseen from the inside. But this is definitely not the only departure the governing body had to deal with. Tim Goss, the single-seater technical director, has also departed the FIA, along with the head of the Women in Motorsport Commission, Deborah Mayer. To have one of the representatives for minorities, women in the sport, leaving her position definitely shows you that the FIA is not moving in the direction that the drivers and the teams are fighting towards: more diversity and more women directly involved in the sport. And according to Wolff, the fact that Nielsen, who ranked highest out of these three, is no longer part of the sport speaks volumes about where F1 is headed with the current leadership. Elaborating on this matter, Wolff said that this is a big blow for the sport, adding, "It's concerning to see so many good people leaving. Losing Steve Nielsen is a big blow. I couldn't think of a more knowledgeable and fair sporting director. As a leader, it's about the culture and environment you create for people to thrive. When people as competent as these leave an organisation, there is a vacuum. That's clear. And you've got to ask yourself, why is it suddenly that so many people have decided to call it a day?" There is, without doubt, a huge wave of changes happening in the FIA, and obviously Wolff's investigation has only led to a more negative reputation on the entire matter. For starters, launching an investigation on Susie Wolf without even questioning her or gathering enough information about the entire case based only on a couple of assumptions made by the rival teams is definitely not the kind of profile that you want to build for yourself. After all, the entire grid denied any snitching on this matter, so the FIA made fools of themselves in quite the polite manner, prompting negative comments from the rest of the field like Fred Vasseur and Lewis Hamilton. According to Toto Wolff, what the FIA needs right now is stability, and quite frankly, he doesn't believe this factor is arriving at the governing body anytime soon. Obviously, there have been tons of changes happening ever since the 2021 finale, which does seem to have left a permanent mark when it comes to Wolff's trust in the FIA, but that doesn't mean he's going to let things just be on their own and not react whenever he sees fit. And on the contrary, the FIA does not seem to leave Wolff like a protected lamb and not go after him whenever a conflict of interest in a situation arises, which then again gives us the perfect scenario of having a wrestle between two very powerful figures in the sport. As you already know, the FIA is one of the three stakeholders along with the FOM and the F1 teams, and elaborating on the FIA's need to be more stable in the future in order to sustain the pressure from the grid as well as the fans, Wolff added, What the FIA needs is stability. The FIA is one of 3 key stakeholders of the sport, along with FOM and the teams, and as the leadership of these organisations, we need to set the tone for everybody else. We need not only to say that we are acting transparently and ethically, but actually to live to that standard every single day. There is no doubt that the investigation that was launched against the Wolffs has done its damage, and the Austrian did not hide his feelings when it comes to how this affected the legacy of his family as well as the well-being of it. According to him, the reputation is not something that could take an easy return after being brutally bashed by the FIA by the investigation it carried out late last year. And when explaining how he and Susie felt about the entire process, he did not mince words, adding, "We have millions of people watching us, so we should always be examples for what we say and what we do. The investigation that was opened and closed in 2 days caused great damage, and that is not something you expect from the F1 world at large. If we want to make the sport increasingly professional, we have to look to bring more transparency when there is none and a standard of the highest level as possible." That is my position. I cannot speak for Susie, but she is a person who does not give up. She possesses great perseverance. It is not the first time she has confronted a difficult situation, and she will go to the end in any court case. When you Google her name now, the investigation immediately comes up at the top. The bullet has come out of the gun, and you can't put it back in. The fact that the investigation was closed as soon as it was opened does raise a huge question mark over whether or not the FIA knew what they were doing in this case, which then again points to the stability factor that Wolff emphasised so greatly. Whether it was a lack of communication or something done out of a pure lack of knowledge on how to properly act on the matter, it's obvious that it has hurt the Wolff family to the extent of which they would find it very hard to recover. On the other hand, Susie's response was more on the disappointing side. As she said in her own words, she was more surprised by the fact that the investigation was dropped as soon as it was started without any proper research being conducted. Elaborating on this, the wife of Toto went on to blame the FIA for the same reasons her husband did: lack of communication, transparency and accountability. As she added, "For 2 days, insinuations have been made about my integrity in public and through background briefings, but nobody from the FIA has spoken to me directly. I might have been collateral damage in an unsuccessful attack on somebody else or the target of a failed attempt to discredit me personally, but I've worked too hard to have my reputation called into question by an unfounded press release." Now it's up to Ben Saliam and the FIA to respond to the claims of the Wolffs that the lack of communication, transparency and responsibility is not what they are known for lately. But apart from the Austrian-Scottish couple, the fans have also called upon changes when it comes to the leadership of the FIA. So far, Ben Saliam has not been the brightest leader and the best replacement for Michael Massey, and numerous decisions have shown that, such as his comments when F1 denied an official offer from Saudi Arabia's investment fund, where Ben said that the sport should not put too big of a price on itself. With this in mind, do you think that Toto's attack on the FIA is a legitimate one? And more importantly, do you think that internal changes in the governing body are long overdue? Let us know in the comments below.